We'll play hide and seek later.
We will play hide and seek later, okay? You gonna listen to Majlis upstairs now? You gonna listen to Majlis upstairs with Dada?
Yeah, but I always, when you go to work, I always see your.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين بالقاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to this series of Majalis, inshallah, in which we will be commemorating the Shahadat of Bibi Fatima Zahra, salamullahi alayha, inshallah, starting tonight all the way till Saturday. Programs all 3 nights will start at 7:30 p.m. Tonight being Shab Juma program, we will have the recitation of Hadith Kisa as well as Dua Kumail. Inshallah, that will also follow with the recitation of Marcia, so Salam Marcia. For that, inshallah, we have Brother Salman Jafri who will take over and conduct the program. And afterward, after the Majlis, inshallah, we'll have the Noha Khani as well. So remain tuned for these programs tonight, tomorrow night, and Saturday night. With that, I would like to request Brother Ghulam Haider to start us off with the recitation of Hadith Kisa. Bismillah.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن عليه السلام قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال لي يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله وأتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء. قال له وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسيي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي قد أذنت لك. ودخل علي تحت الكساء. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء. قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم. فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا منحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل يا رب أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا منحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله: وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله، فإنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء، فقال لأبي: إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول: إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. وقال علي لأبي: يا رسول الله، أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله: والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني من رسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض، وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا، إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله: يا علي، والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض، وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا، وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه، ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه، ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا، وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد عجل فرجهم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء، وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء، وخضع لها كل شيء وذل لها كل شيء، وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء، وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء، وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء، وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء، وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء، وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء، وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء، وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء. يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحتك العصم. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقم. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تقطع الرجاء. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء. اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأت قلتها. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلهمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وعظم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقبائحي ساترا ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترته وكم من فادح من البلاء أقلته وكم من عثار وقيته وكم من مكروه دفعته وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرته. اللهم عظم بلائي وأفرط بي سوء حالي وقصرت بي أعمالي وقعدت بي أغلالي وحبسني عن نفعي بعد آمالي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بجنايتها ومطالي يا سيدي. فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي وغرني بما أهوى وأسعده على ذلك قضاء فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعض حدودك وخالفت بعض أوامرك فلك الحجة علي فيه جميع ذلك ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاءك وألزمني حكمك وبلاءك. وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا. لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة من رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ضري وفكني من شد وثاقي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي. يا من بدأ خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي هبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي. يا إلهي وسيدي وربي أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك وبعد ما انطوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك ولهج به لساني من ذكرك واعتقده ضميري من حبك وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك، هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيته، أو تبعد من أدنيته، أو تشرد من آويته، أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمته. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي، وتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدة، وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك الصادقة وبشكرك مادحة، وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة، وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة، وعلى جوارح سعت إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة، وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنة. ما هكذا الظن بك، ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم يا ربي، وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها، وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكثه، يسير بقاؤه قصير مدته، فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها، وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك، وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض. يا سيدي فكيف بي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين. يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكو، ولما منها أضج وأبكي، لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته؟ فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك، وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك، وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك، فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي. صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك؟ وهبني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك؟ أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك؟ فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لأضجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين، ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين، ولأنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين، يا غاية آمال العارفين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين، ويا إله العالمين. أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته، وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته، وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته، وهو يضج إليك ضجيج مؤمل لرحمتك، ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك، ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك. يا مولاي فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك؟ أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه؟ أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه؟ أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا ربه؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك، ولا المعروف من فضلك، ولا مشبه لما عاملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك. فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك، وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك، لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما، وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما، لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين، وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين، وأن تجل ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما، أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي، فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها، وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها، وغلبت من عليه أجريتها، أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته، وكل ذنب أذنبته، وكل قبيح أسررته، وكل جهل عملته، كتمته أو أعلنته، أخفيته أو أظهرته، وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني، وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي، وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم، والشاهد لما خفي عنهم، وبرحمتك أخفيت، وبفضلك سترت، وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلت، أو إحسان فضلت، أو بر نشرته، أو رزق بسطته، أو ذنب تغفره، أو خطأ تستره، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي، يا من بيده ناصيتي، يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي، يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، أسألك بحقك وقدسك وعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي في الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورة، وبخدمتك موصولة، وأعمالي عندك مقبولة، حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا، وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا، يا سيدي، يا من عليه معولي، يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، قو على خدمتك جوارحي، واشتد على العزيمة جوانحي، وهب لي الجد في خشيتك، والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك، حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين، وأسرع إليك في المبادرين، وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين، وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين، وأخافك مخافة الموقنين، وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم ومن أرادني بالسوء فأرده، ومن كادني فكده، واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك، وأقربهم منزلة منك، وأخصهم زلفة لديك، فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك، وجد لي بجودك، واعطف علي بمجدك، واحفظني برحمتك، واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا، وقلبي بحبك متيما، ومن علي بحسن إجابتك، وأقلني عثرتي، واغفر زلتي، فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك. وأمرتهم بدعائك وضمنت لهم الإجابة فإليك يا ربي نصبت وجهي وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي وبلغني منايا ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي يا سريع الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء فإنك فعال لما تشاء يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاحه البكاء يا سابغ النعم يا دافع النقم يا نور المستوحشين في الظلم يا عالما لا يعلم صل على محمد وآل محمد وفعل بما أنت أهله وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل.
رحم الله. نقرأ الفاتحة.
أحسنتم جزاكم الله.
Nazreen, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Masjid-e-Ali YouTube channel, as always. Tonight we will start a 3-night series of majalises, as Maulana had mentioned in the beginning of the program, to commemorate and observe the Shahadat of Bibi Sayyida Fatima Zahra, salamun alayh. Tomorrow night, as well as Saturday night, Majlis will start at 7:30 p.m. And we hope you will tune in to join us in this observance in the next few nights, inshallah. As always, tonight we will start the program with the recitation of Surah Salam and Marsiya, followed by the lecture Majalis recited by Maulana Rizwan Rizvi Sahab, which will then be followed by Matam and Noha. So, inshallah, we will start this program tonight. Ek salawat padhiya ala Muhammad wa ale Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اس سے پہلے کہ میں جناب حسن جعفری صاحب کو دعوت دوں سو سلام مرثیہ کے لیے، اگر مولانا اجازت ہو تو 4 مصرے ہیں، ملاحظہ فرمائیے. عرض ہے کہ قصہ میں آئی تو پنجتن کے شرف کی پہچان بن گئی ہے. قصہ میں آئی تو پنجتن کے شرف کی پہچان بن گئی ہے، نساء میں بیٹھی تو تربیت گاہ دین و ایمان بن گئی ہے. اور سمٹ کے دیکھا تو بے کے نقطے کی زیر کی شان بن گئی ہے، بکھر کے سوچا تو فاطمہ خود تمام قرآن بن گئی ہے. ایک صلوات پڑھی علی محمد و آل محمد.
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.
اسی کے ساتھ 100 سلام مرثی کے لیے میں دعوت دیتا ہوں جناب حسن جعفری صاحب کو. ایک صلوات پڑھی علی محمد و آل محمد.
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد. یوں پانی وہ فاطمہ کا جانی مانگے، یوں پانی وہ فاطمہ کا جانی مانگے، گویا علی اصغر کی زبانی مانگے، اور یوں شمر کہے حرملا سے مار وہ تیر، ارے جس تیر کا مارا نہ پانی مانگے، جس تیر کا مارا نہ پانی مانگے، یوں پانی وہ فاطمہ کا۔ درود بھیجیے محمد و آل محمد۔
اللہم صلی اللہ
صلی علی محمد وآل محمد۔ جزاک اللہ خیر۔
سلام کے چند اشعار۔
بسم اللہ۔
جس طرح اللہ کو واجب ہے سجدہ صبح و شام، جس طرح اللہ کو واجب ہے سجدہ صبح و شام، اور ویسے ہی کرتا ہوں میں تسبیح زہرا صبح و شام، جس طرح اللہ کو واجب ہے سجدہ صبح و شام، اور پی رہا ہوں مہر زہرا کا میں پانی رات دن، پی رہا ہوں مہر زہرا کا میں پانی رات دن، اور کھاتا ہوں در زہرا کا صدقہ صبح و شام، جس طرح اللہ کو واجب ہے سجدہ صبح و شام، اور میں جو رہتا ہوں تصور میں سرے کرب و بلا، میں جو رہتا ہوں تصور میں سرے کرب و بلا، اور یوں کیا کرتا ہوں جنت کا نظارہ صبح و شام، جس طرح اللہ کو واجب ہے سجدہ صبح و شام، اور جب سے سرور کا عزا خانہ سجایا دوستو، جب سے سرور کا عزا خانہ سجایا دوستو، اور گھر میں رہتا ہے مودت کا اجالا صبح و شام، جس طرح اللہ کو واجب ہے سجدہ صبح و شام، اور ماں کا سایہ کیا اٹھا سارے ہی سائے اٹھ گئے، ماں کا سایہ کیا اٹھا سارے ہی سائے اٹھ گئے، اور خانہ زہرا میں اب ہوتا ہے گریا صبح و شام، جس طرح اللہ کو واجب ہے سجدہ صبح و شام. اور کون تھا وہ تربتوں کو کس نے ڈھایا ہے ظفر. اور کون تھا وہ تربتوں کو کس نے ڈھایا ہے ظفر. کیوں ہے اب نوحہ کنا خلد بقیہ صبح و شام. کیوں ہے اب نوحہ کنا خلد بقیہ صبح و شام. جس طرح اللہ کو درود بھیجو محمد و آل محمد.
اللہم علی محمد و آل محمد.
فاتحہ.
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم.
راوی بیان کرتا ہے زہرا کا ماجرا. جب رفتہ رفتہ سیدہ کا عرضہ بڑھا پھر صاحب فراش ہوئی و مصیبت. طاقت رہی نہ جسم مبارک میں مطلع. طاقت رہی نہ جسم مبارک میں مطلقہ. ایسا مرض بڑھا کے اجل سر پہ آ گئی. ایک روز مردنی رخ زہرا پہ چھا گئی. ایک روز مردنی رخ زہرا پہ چھا گئی. زینب سرحان بیٹھ کے کرنے لگی بکا. ہائے ہائے میں کیا کروں میری مادر کو کیا ہوا. جھک جھک کے اس طرف سے دیتی تھی یہ صدا. لی مجھ سے نظا میں بھی نہ خدمت یہ کیا کیا. لی مجھ سے نظا میں بھی نہ خدمت یہ کیا کیا. کیا جانے روح جسم سے کیوں کرنے کر گئی. اماں تمہارے چہرے کی رنگت بدل گئی. اماں تمہارے چہرے کی رنگت بدل گئی. اٹھیے سبوں کو پاس بلا کر بٹھائیے. کیا نوش کیجیے گا میں لاؤں بتائیے. بھائی گئے ہیں دیر سے ان کو بلائیے. رونے کو قبر احمد مرسل پہ جائیے. رونے کو قبر احمد مرسل پہ جائیے. ایسی بھی نیند ہوتی ہے بیدار ہوئیے. گھر ہے اداس بیٹھیے ہوشیار ہوئیے. گھر ہے اداس بیٹھیے ہوشیار ہوئیے. شہزادے آئے اتنے میں باحال دردنا. دل ہو گیا حسین کا صدمے سے چاک چاک. دوڑے حسن ملے ہوئے اپنی جبین پہ خاک. بولے علی سے ہو گئے ہم جیتے جی ہلاک. بولے علی سے ہو گئے ہاں جیتے جی ہلاک جو قہر ہو گیا وہ کہے کہ زبان سے ارے بابا چلو کہ اٹھ گئی اماں جہان سے بابا چلو کہ اٹھ گئی اماں جہان سے راوی بیان کرتا ہے زہرا کا ماجرا درود بھیجو محمد
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد. بہت بہت شکریہ جناب حسن جعفری صاحب. اس سے پہلے کہ میں جناب مولانا رضوان رضوی صاحب کو دعوت دوں، 4 مصرے ہیں، ملاحظہ فرمائیے کہ جہاں آیا قرآن وہ گھر جلا دیا، جہاں آیا قرآن وہ گھر جلا دیا، تنہا فاطمہ پہ جلتا در گرا دیا، اور خدا جانے یہ درد کتنا مشکل تھا، خدا جانے یہ درد کتنا مشکل تھا، جس درد نے مشکل کشاہ کو رلا دیا. اسی کے ساتھ میں دعوت دیتا ہوں جناب مولانا رضوان رضوی صاحب سے ایک صلوات پڑھیے علی محمد وآل محمد.
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد.
رحم اللہ من قرأ سورة الفاتحة. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. الحمد للہ رب العالمین الرحمن الرحیم مالک یوم الدین ایاک نعبد و ایاک نستعین اهدنا الصراط المستقیم صراط الذین انعمت علیہم غیر المغضوب علیہم ولا الضالین. صلی اللہ محمد. One more Surah Fatiha for the sponsors of tonight's Majlis and their marhumin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen ar-Rahman ar-Rahim Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim wala ad-dallin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa'ajil farajahum. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين وبالقاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل إن كنتم تحبون الله فاتبعوني يحببكم الله ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم والله غفور رحيم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. As you heard that this is a series of majalis, inshallah, 3 majalis in the row, commemorating the Shahadat of Khatun Jannat, the leader of the women of paradise, Bibi Fatima Zahra, Salamullahi alayha. And while we find that there are 2 different dates for her shahadat, and this masala is something which I have spoken about in the past as well, that the riwayat or the riwayat that we have in reference to her shahadat mention that she either passed away 75 days after the wafat of Rasulullah or 95 days after the wafat of Rasulullah. So if you were to count the 75 days and take that riwayat, Rasulullah's wafat was on 28th of Safar. The shahadat of Bibi would be on 13th of Jamad al-Ula. And if you take the second rawayat, which is the 95 days after the wafat of Rasulullah, the Shahadat of Bibi will fall on the third day of Jumad al-Akhirah or Jumad al-Thaniyah. But have you ever questioned as to why Ayyam-e-Fatimiyyah, especially in Hawzat al-Ilmiyyah, in Qum, in Najaf, wherever there's, Hawzat al-Ilmiyyah, that they commemorate the Shahadat for 3 days. Alhamdulillah, we are doing the Majalis for 3 days as well, tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday. Some places there might be a khamsa, 5 Majalis, and some places there might actually be an ashra of the Majalis. But the 3 Majalis are a custom that has been going on for a very long time in the places of, Islamic seminaries. And upon inquiring, you understand the reasoning behind it. Because neither one of these 2 riwayat, which mention the 75 days or the 95 days, it gives us the actual date of her shahadat. Nowhere do you find that she passed away on 13th of Jumad al-Ula or 3rd of Jumad al-Akhirah. It just says 75 or 95. So if you were to do a simple math from 28th of Safar, bearing in mind that the lunar calendar, lunar months are either 29 days or 30 days. If all of the months were 30 days, then you will get to the tariq of 3rd of Jumad al-Ula. But it is a possibility that those months may not have been 30 days, and one of the 2 months could have been, or one of the 3 months could have been 29 days. In that case, the Shahadat will fall on the 4th of Jumad al-Akhirah. And it is also possible that 2 out of these 3 months were of 29 days. In that case, the Shahadat will fall on the 5th of Jumad al-Akhirah. So therefore, in Hawza al-Ilmiyyah, it is a custom to commemorate the Shahadat on any one of all 3 of these nights, because there's a ihtimal, there's a probability that the actual Shahadat may have been on the 3rd, 4th, or the 5th of this month of Jumad al-Akhir. And that is the custom. But nonetheless, the more we talk about this great personality, the more we introduce her exalted character to mankind, the better it is. And for these 3 majalis, inshallah, we will try to highlight the akhlaq, the life of Janab Fatima Zahra, salamullahi alayha. I chose this ayat, which I won't go in much details tonight, as it will be more appropriate to go in details of it pertaining to the subject tomorrow. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this 31st ayat of Surah Al Imran says, say, if you love Allah, Prophet is saying, Prophet is commanded to say this to the people. Say, if you love Allah, then follow me. Allah will love you and will forgive your sins. And Allah is all forgiving and Allah is all merciful. One of the ayat of Quran which gives us great hope in the maghfirat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of our sins. It says, yaghfir lakum dunubakum. Allah forgives you and your sins. The mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and maghfirat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Primarily why? Because if you were to show love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the condition placed upon this love is to follow and do the ittiba of his prophet, which is only understandable, and it's only common to do that. So one of the desires that Allah has instilled in mankind is that of love. I'm sure even the most stern-hearted people in the world have love for certain individuals or certain people in the past of the history, their ancestors, great personalities, imams, prophets, saints, and eventually for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is one of the desires that Allah has instilled in our hearts, that we have love. We innately love many things that, and I use the word innate because they are part of our zat. We don't need to be encouraged sometimes, and that love is innate. And so we're fond of them. But our fondness changes over time for certain things. And that is, again, something which is only natural, that as a person's mind and intellect grows, the interests also change. And it's a life cycle. When you were a child, what were your interests? When you grew older, your interests changed. When you grew a little bit more, your interest, completely changed, and so on and so forth. So child at a young age is fond of toys and playing games. But the same child, when he gets older, his interest and his fondness changes to other things. For example, when he was only tuned into toys, those were very infant-like toys. His fondness now, interest changes to different types of toys, which appeal to him. Those toys no longer appeal to this child. Maybe he's now into books, and maybe he's now into reading. Then they look forward to starting school, especially after seeing their older siblings go to school. There's this interest that I want to do that as well. Now, how long that interest lasts, that's only up for the child and the encouragement provided by the parents. But at least in the beginning, they have this interest and fondness towards it. When this educational process advances, they are fond of, doing good in their grades, getting degrees, and eventually knowing the purpose behind these degrees to get a suitable job. And after that, their interest will be starting a family, for example. So within a few years, maybe 15 to 20 years, 25 years, you see how drastically, not although gradually, but drastically, the interests of a human being are changing. Their love for things are changing. Something that they loved when they were younger, they no longer pay any attention to it. So this is primarily to do with those things which are materialistic. As the person advances in his or her age, their spirituality also starts increasing. And then they start detaching themselves from the things which they ran after all their lives. And there comes a time in their lives when they're advanced in age, that everything else that they were running after all their life seems like waste of time. But of course, at that moment when they were running after it, nobody was there to tell them. Or even if someone did tell them, they did not pay attention to it. For example, and this is a personal experience, majority of the questions that I get from the elderly women in our communities, not just our New Jersey community, even from, outside, wherever people call me from. And I think all the other scholars, I'm just a student, other ulama could also testify the same thing. The majority of the questions that I get from the elderly women these days are about what? Mustahab salat. What dua should we read? What surah should we recite in namaz? Is reciting surah, for example, Muddassir better, or surah Muzammil better than, for example, reciting other surahs? So while their children, their children may not be praying at all, they are worried about what to recite in their prayers. While their children might be running away from the salat, they are inclined to know what is mustahab. While the children might be failing in their obligations and wajibat, they are worried about the mustahabbat and so on and so forth. So at this age, it is common. The intensity for spiritual deeds increases. The sense of charity, infaq, fi sabilillah, rises. When they had access to a lot of wealth and financial means, the sense of charity may not have been there. But now when it has decreased, now all of a sudden there's sense of charity and infaq fi sabilillah. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of people have this sense from the very beginning. I'm talking about, generally speaking, the trend of the societies in which we live in. What is it that Fatima to Zahra salamullah alayha was fond of? Because after all, she is the role model for all of us, and she is that example for all of us. So all of these things that I will mention, I will bring Janab Sayyida and her love for things. And you see that is the love that remained throughout her life. It did not change as she grew up. And of course, she did not get to live a long, lengthy life. But the fruitful 18 years of her life, her interests were the same. They never changed, unlike other folks. So the riwayah says, what was she fond of? قالت فاطمة سلام الله عليها حبب إلي من دنياكم ثلاث تلاوة كتاب الله والنظر في وجه رسول الله والإنفاق في سبيل الله. Three things that I am fond of from your world. Now, first of all, it is very difficult for me to show any fondness and interest in this world of yours. But the three things that I can pick that I am fond of in this world, one is tilawatu kitabillah. One is the recitation of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two, wan nazaru fi wajhi rasulillah. Looking at the face and the illuminated face, Chehra por Noor, of my father Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wal infaqu fi sabilillah. And spending in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So out of all the things that you could have imagined, Janab Sayyida says these are the three things that I am fond of. These are my three interests. Recitation of the Kitab of Allah, looking at the face of Rasulullah, and giving in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Daily life at the public level is the best example over the character and the behavior of mankind. With little attention and a little bit of research in the behavior of the people around us, we can deduce that there are four types of husbands and wives around us. Now, again, this is coming from personal interaction with the community members at large, not just New Jersey, even outside. And then, inshallah, we'll derive as to which category Janab Sayyida and Amir al-Mu'mineen fall in, and which category do they expect us to be in as well. So while just a little bit of research, not that you look into the lives of the people, just paying a little bit of attention, you know, the best example over the character of mankind is their behavior in public. You can deduce a great deal about people, and you can say that there are four types of husbands and wives around us. One, some women are held captive by bad men. So some wives are captives by their spouses. Some men are held captive by some bad women. Bad behavior is from both sides. Number three, husband and wife have a moral agreement between each other. So you got four people, right? Four types of husband and wives. And first, the women, the wives are the ones who are suffering. Second, where the husbands are the ones who are suffering. Third, both are suffering. And fourth, both are enjoying a very healthy moral agreement between each other. Now, of course, it's easy to determine which one of these four is the life of Janab Sayyida and Amir al-Mu'mineen. But can we determine which one of these four categories do we fall in? And if we fall into any of the first three, then we need to do something about it. And this is what these majalis should be all about. When you look at the lives of Janab Sayyida and Amir al-Mu'mineen, don't brush it aside or shove it under the carpet by saying, oh, they were masumeen. They were masumeen, but they were created to live a natural life like you and I do. They were infallible, but Allah had kept the interests, the love, and the similar ihsasat and the affections in them the way you and I have those affections. They love their children. They love their husband, their spouses. They love their fathers. They love their mothers. They love people around them. They had a need to eat. Quran is highlighting that aspect. That يُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. That they used to feed the ta'am to those who were in need, even when they were in need of it themselves, right? You have the entire waqia in front of you. And why not eating for many days and eating very little, they had become weak. So all those things are there. So they are, while ma'asumin, but they are a perfect role model for us so that you and I can look up to them and not just, throw away the history saying, oh, they were ma'asum. How can we be like them? Let's examine the life of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib والسلام, and Janab Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha, as husband and wife. As husband and wife. Imam Ali said the following about her. He said, and this, what Imam Ali said about her, shows us and tells us also as to what some of those people and historians have argued and given a bad name to Amir al-Mu'mineen in their riwayat, how this riwayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen disproves it, that he ever harmed or hurted Janab Sayyida. This disproves that fact. Remember that hadith which we had talked about last time in the Majlis commemorating the Shahadat on the 13th of Jamad al-Ula, when we talked about the shubahat created by the Wahhabis. One of the shubha was that Amir al-Mu'mineen, when Rasulullah said Fatima to bada'atum minni, that Fatima is part of me, this hadith is in Bukhari. But what is the muqaddimah of this hadith? It is mentioned that Janab Amir al-Mu'mineen wanted to marry Juwayriya, daughter of Abu Jahl, and that is the reason Rasulullah said this, that I don't want my daughter to be sharing her husband with anyone else. And therefore, Amir al-Mu'mineen had intention of marrying Juwayriya, and Janab Sayyida was not, happy about it, and therefore Rasulullah said this. All bogus claims, and we refuted this hadith and the background of it, because the Ravi is the one who was born in the same year when they're trying to claim this incident took place. And Amir al-Mu'mineen could not have married Juwayriya in that year because she hadn't even embraced Islam yet. Out of all the people, Ali knows that marriage to a kafir is not permissible. And she had not even moved, for example, or converted to Islam until the 8th year after Hijrah, when Fatima took place. All of those, refutations were, all those rebuttals were given in that majlis. You can refer to that. So that also is proven through this hadith. Ali ibn Abi Talib said, "Fawallahi, by God." And when Masumin used the word wallahi, it's not how you and I are accustomed to swearing to Allah and taking an oath. Imam said, "Fawallahi, by God, ma aghdabtuha wala akrahtuha ala amrin hatta qabadaha Allahu azza wa jalla." He said, I never made her angry, nor have I done anything upon which Janab Sayyida showed little bit of despise and disliking. That means I've never done anything where she would show any sort of annoyance or she would become angry. Ma aghdabtuha wala akrahtuha ala amrin hatta qabadahu Allahu azza wa jalla. And then he says, wala aghzabatni wala asatli amran. And same is for Janab Sayyida, that she never made me angry and she never disobeyed me in anything. وَلَقَدْ كُنْتُ أَنْظُرُ إِلَيْهَا فَتَنْكَشِفُ عَنِّي الْهُمُومُ وَالْأَحْزَانُ. On the contrary, every time I was down, feeling stressed from something else, in depression, I would look at her face and it will remove all of the pains and the grief from me. That's what Sayyida was for me. So this is the fourth category, right? Where husband and wife have a moral agreement between each other. Let's just hope that we can follow the sirat of Janab Sayyida and Amir al-Mu'mineen in this regards. This temporary worldly life demands that husband and wife should fulfill the needs of one another. And it is through performing the things which may or may not be wajib upon us. A lot of time, you get this argument that Maulana, it is not obligatory upon them, the women, for example, to do the chores around the house, which is true. Many of these things are not obligatory upon them. And it is not wajib. That's what Sharia says. But the life will encounter many hurdles if we only fulfill the wajibat without fulfilling the thousands of mustahabbat that are mentioned to have a very prosperous life. So we overlook all of those mustahabbat while we're only focusing on those 2 or 3 things that are obligatory upon us. So that is important. It's a mutual, life where both have to work in order to make this to be successful. So when it comes to emulating someone, we are the first ones to say that we should emulate the lives of Ma'asumin. But when it comes to the implementation, we are far behind and lacking in it. If a wife does things around the house, she's only following the sunnah of Fatima Zahra. Don't belittle her or disregard the things that she's done. And if a husband is working outside of the house and doing hard work, for example, don't belittle. As long as it's what? It's something which is bringing in halal for the family. Should be encouraged, regardless of how much or how little. So from in this aspect, we find this tradition about the Sirat of Janab al-Sayyida. Fifth Imam Baqir al-Salam said, Inna Fatimata ضمنت لعلي عمل البيت والعجين والخبز وقم البيت وضمن لها علي ما كان خلف الباب نقل الحطب وأن يجيء بالطعام, so on and so forth. He said they both had divided the works of the house. Janab al-Sayyida would prepare the food and clean the house and take care of the things which had to do inside the house. Well, Amir al-Mu'mineen took care of the things which were from the outside, like bringing the wood for it to be burned, or for example, bringing the food and all those things. Some men do not appreciate the work women do around the house. But then this is where they look up to the Sirat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. They don't pay attention to the things that, sometimes could be very tiring. On the contrary, there are men who not only appreciate but encourage by lending a hand in these works. Sometimes it helps if you tell other people about the hard work your spouse is doing. It shows more appreciation. And that is the sunnah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Look at this tradition. روي أن الأمير المؤمنين قال لرجل. I'll skip the Arabic part and I'll focus only the translation of it. Imam Ali said to a man from Bani Asad, let me tell you about Fatima Zahra. Seems like this is either could be during her life or could be after her passing away. She was the most beloved, or she's the most beloved of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She carried the water skin, when, of course, bringing the water out of the well, she was carried the water skin so much that it left a permanent mark on her body. She needed the flour, the process of making the flour, because it was not available as a flour outside in the market, so much that her hands had become so firm. Her clothes were, in full of dust because of the cleaning of the house. In order to prepare the food, she lit the fire and worked around fire, and that she had so many burns on her hands and other places. One day I told Fatima, Salamullah alayha, Amir al-Mu'mineen is saying, ask your father. Now he's telling this to a man from Bani Asad. So mentioning about Janab Sayyida, taking what is called mubahat, taking pride in saying this. He said, one day I told Fatima, ask your father to arrange for a servant who can help you with these things, because sometimes I'm unable to help you out and give you a hand because of the stuff that I have to do outside. She went to see her father and saw many people had come with their requests. She felt ashamed and she came back. And so taking pride and telling others about it sometimes is what? Is more appreciative. We shouldn't degrade or lower ourselves if we perform these actions around the house. This is reviving the sunnah of Fatima to Zahra, Salamullahi alayha, and Amirul Mu'mineen. Women that lend a hand to their husbands and even are making, earning money, bringing the money inside the house. Allah will reward them for that. Some help them by taking care of the house, by raising the children, by these materialistic things. Aside from these things, Fatima Zahra helped Amirul Mu'mineen intellectually as well. Now, Ali was aql kul, but still with that, whenever he needed help, who would be there to help Janabi Amirul Mu'mineen? Fatima Zahra. This is one incident in their life where it says that Amirul Mu'mineen entered in the house and he was distressed. He looked that, there was something that was bothering him. Faqalat, she said to him, Ma hadhihi al-Ka'ba? Oh Ali, what is up with you? He says, Sa'alana Rasulullah. Rasulullah asked us about a mas'ala. Walam yakun indana jawabun. And we didn't have the answer. Now this does not, don't take it from the aspect that Amirul Mu'mineen, na'udhu billah, does not know anything. Similar is said about Rasulullah when he ascended to Mi'raj. Allah asked him a question. He said, La adri, I don't know. This I don't know does not lower the status of Rasulullah. Or this saying that we did not know the answer does not lower the status of Amirul Mu'mineen. Because all the ilm of the unseen is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has shared part of it with Amirul Mu'mineen, with Rasulullah, with Ayyam-e-Fatimiyyah. Many think that he has still kept away from them, and that is something which is proven through the ayat of Quran and Musallam Aqidah of our Imams. For example, in Quran, when people asked Rasulullah, when will Qayamat take place? Rasulullah said, In adri. Ahuwa qaribun am ba'id. I do not know. This is the exact ayat of Quran. I do not know whether it is near or far. So that's one thing which Allah has kept secret even from Rasulullah, and of course subsequently from Ma'asumin. When will Imam reappear? Imam Ma'asum, Imam Zaman. That's something which we do not, la nuwaqqat. We do not give a time frame. Ma'asumin have said that. So there are certain things like that. So don't go in that discussion. Focus on the actual masala that is being mentioned here. So Amirul Mu'mineen was, sort of in distress. He said, Rasulullah asked us a question and we did not know the answer. Prophet asked us, what is a woman? Who is a woman? We replied, she is the best example of modesty and bashfulness. She is someone, as the word that they have used, is someone who's a perfect example of modesty, someone who displays modesty. Then he asked, when is she closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Amirul Mu'mineen said to Janab Sayyidah, we did not know. Fatima salamullah alayha heard this, said to Amirul Mu'mineen, go back to Rasulullah, go back to my father and tell him this. So here she's helping him intellectually. The least amount of duty she has toward her Lord is to tend to the inside affairs of the house and protect herself from strangers outside of the house. When Prophet heard this answer, he said, Sadaqat, inna Fatima bada'atun minni. Exactly what I expected. And Fatima has told the truth. And that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is when she's closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The least amount that she takes care of the household needs, and she protects herself from the strangers outside. And that's where she's closest to Allah. And Rasulullah praises his daughter upon giving this answer. And this is how she helped Amirul Mu'mineen intellectually understanding this concept. The attitude that she had toward her children. Every person is thirsty of love. There's no replacement for it in our society. Everyone wants them. And I said that in the beginning as well. Even most stern-hearted people, they have love and interest as well. Especially in our childhood years, right? Every child can sense the love of mother. Even when he's being scolded by a mother for the mistakes that they have made, they still have this fond and this love for their mothers. A mother also tries to fulfill all the needs of their children, from preparing their favorite food, for example, preparing something that they really enjoy and they like, asking them, do you want this with it? Do you want that with that? Going through all the troubles of doing that. Buying them, for example, their favorite things, their favorite toys, if they're capable of doing so. And putting them to sleep. And for example, even singing lullabies to them, when putting them to bed. These actually are the best moments in the life of a child. They'll tell you when they grow up. Janab Fatima Zahra was an exemplary mother as well for her children. We sometimes take this part away from her. We take it for granted. Well, since Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein were ma'soom, what really tarbiyat is needed to raise a ma'soom? She still had to raise them, and as well as the daughters, Kulthum and Zainab, who do not fall in the same category as Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein. So whenever she would play with Imam Hassan, she would read the following rhymes for her. She would say, Ashbih abaka ya Hassan, wakhla anil haqqir rasan, wa'bud ilahan dha minan, wala tawali dhal ihan. And this is what she would read to Imam Hassan when he was young. Oh Hassan, be like your father. Instead of turning him, for example, in a different direction. Now, their perfect example, father is also ma'soom, his son is also ma'soom. But even if that was not the case, still encouraging your son to represent your father. Be like your father. Remove the rope from the neck of truth, meaning always side with the truth. Always be upon haqq. Worship one Lord and refrain from the company of people who hold grudges and bear malice. We see that at a young age, when she's rearing her young son, she's instilling in him these high exalted matalib and teachings. First of all, instilling in his heart the love of the father, lest you see something, if the father, for example, is of an angry nature, sometimes deals with you harshly, still, ashbeh abaka ya Hasan, be like your father. And then side with haqq all the time. Worship one Lord and don't be in the company of those who hold grudges. Whenever she would sing lullaby to Imam Hussein, she would recite the following. Now, these are just in the rawayat. Anta shabihu abi. Oh Hassan, oh Hussein, anta shabihun abi. Or shabihu abi. You resemble my father. Lasta shabihan bi Ali. And you do not resemble Ali. She would sing this to Imam Hussein. On the contrary, that anta shabihu abi, you are like my father. That means Rasulullah. And you do not resemble Ali ibn Abi Talib. Upon hearing this, Imam Ali would smile as to why or how Janab Sayyidah would be speaking to both of her. So this is where these are the best moments in the lives of a child, and they cherish this forever in their lives. Patience and thankfulness was the nature of Fatima Zahra. And inshallah, I'll bring it towards the Masaib with this. The luxuries of this world and this worldly life and its glamour has deceived some people so much that they don't think that there's any other objective from this worldly life. They think this is it. This is all there would be, and there's nothing beyond this. These are the people who rarely are able to face the calamities when they're facing in this world. They're the first ones to succumb to the very basic calamities that fall upon them. But many know that there's a world after this temporary abode, and their current place is only means for them to reach the lofty place in the hereafter. Therefore, these people prepare themselves better to face the calamities in this world. Why? Because the calamities that is seen in this world will provide a highest maqam in the hereafter. The short and simple life of Fatima Zahra was accompanied by many calamities. She only lived for 18 years. But don't underestimate the 18 years, that very little time, but the amount of, sort of like the life of our other imams, later imams, who only got to live for 25 years or 28 years, right? For example, our 9th imam is born in 195 and his shahadat is in 220. All in all is 25 years of age. But that does not mean that he lacked in his responsibilities. He did the similar amount of work it would have required for another imam to do in, for example, 60 years of life. So fulfilling those. Similarly, when they lived shorter, they faced, if not more, at least the same amount of calamities and the difficulties in their lives. And the calamities of Janab Sayyidah are known to us. The short and the simple life of Fatima Zahra was accompanied by many calamities and serves as a beacon for us how to cope with the calamities when we are facing them in our lives. Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, he said that he saw Rasulullah, annahu ra'a nabi Fatima, that he was looking at Fatima, alayha kisa'un min ajillatil ibil, wa hiya tathanu biyadiha, wa turdi'a waladaha. The Rasulullah saw his daughter while wearing a cloak made of camel wool, working hard inside her house. Prophet shed a couple of tears and said to her, "O my beloved daughter." What did he say? He said, فَقَالَ يَا بِنْتَهِ تَعَجَّلِي مَرَارَةَ الدُّنْيَا بِحَلَاوَةِ الْآخِرَةِ. That, oh my daughter, oh my beloved daughter, taste the difficulty of this worldly life before you taste the sweetness of the hereafter. What did Janab Sayyidah respond by saying? Ya Rasulullah, Alhamdulillahi ala na'ma'ihi wa shukru lillahi ala ala'ihi. Grace and praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon the favors that he has bestowed upon us, and thanks to him upon the bounties that he has given to us. Now, two words are used, ni'ma and ala. Some of us have mentioned the word ni'ma probably means the internal and the spiritual favors of Allah, while the word ala refers to the external and the apparent and maybe the materialistic favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So she was all up for the masaib that she was facing, and she embraced those masaib wholeheartedly because she knew inna ma'al usri yusra. When it came to the desire of worship by Fatima Zahra, when we look at her ibadat, and this is just going through her entire life, and inshallah we'll continue this in the next couple of nights as well. People are divided into different parts or different groups in aspect of their worship. Number one, some have no desire to worship Allah. Number two, some worship Allah only to the extent that it is obligatory. Some, along with the obligations, make an effort to do the nawafil as well. Number four, some add mustahabbat to the nawafil. The category that I mentioned usually comes when we are, advanced in our age. And lastly, people who are constantly worshiping and have the desire to be on this path, love for this path. The household of Rasulullah is amongst those who desire the path of worship. And Fatima Zahra is the prime example of that. Not to undermine all the things that I mentioned before, all the hard work that she used to do in her house. And imagine all the things that we have, those we call the luxuries, sahuliyat, that we have in our houses, the things that make our tasks easy. You want to heat up something, you just put it on the stove, put it into the microwave, put it into the oven, and the thing is heated up for you. Back in the day, you needed the wood. You needed to build a fire. There was no gas available, which will be able to go ahead and turn on the stove. To make a bread, all you do is you buy the bread which is ready already, and you just prepare it and you warm it up and you eat it. Back in the day, you had to, convert it first, make the flour, and then from there you go ahead and make the dough, and then you go ahead and prepare the bread, and so on and so forth. There's still some people do that, but that was the process. So it wasn't easy. So it adds on to the work. So while she had so much work and as well as taking care of the children. You know what Riwayat says about her ibadat? ما كان في الدنيا أعبد من فاطمة كانت تقوم حتى تتورم قدماها. There was no one, ما كان في الدنيا, who's more أعبد, that means more worshipping, who did more worship than Fatima Zahra. كانت تقوم حتى تتورم قدماها. She would stand up for the salat and prayers so much that there would be wounds and there would be bruises on her feet. And different riwayat, ما كان في هذه الأمة. There was no one in this ummah more of an ibadat guzar than Fatima Zahra. Now, in the company of such individuals, she is being considered the one who is more, worshipping than other people. Just imagine the ibadat of Fatima Zahra. I'll conclude that once our second Imam Hassan al-Mushtaba alayhi wasalam, he saw that this was a tradition of Janab al-Sayyida. He said, رَأَيْتُ أُمِّ Fatima. I saw my mother Fatima. قَامَتْ فِي مِحْرَابِ. She was standing in her mihrab. And she would stand in her mihrab every Friday night. This Shab Jummah that we call, which is Friday night. That's why there's so much emphasis on ibadat on Friday night. فَلَمْ تَزَلْ راكعة ساجدة حتى اتضح أمود الصبح. And she will be in the ruku and sujood until it was morning. Masumin paid special efforts towards Friday night, which is right now, and the day of Friday, because of the of course, all of the attributes that are associated with the Friday. وَسَمِعْتُهَا تَدْعُو لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. I heard her pray for mu'mineen and mu'minat. وَتُسَمِّيهِمْ وَتُكْثِرُ الدُّعَاء. And she would name them when she was praying for them. And she would make more and more dua for them. وَلَا تَدْعُو لِنَفْسِهَا بِشَيْءٍ. But she would not pray or make dua for herself. So I said to her, Ya Ummah, لِمَا لَا تَدْعِينَ لِنَفْسِكِ كَمَا تَدْعِينَ لِغَيْرِكِ. فَقَالَ يَا بُنَيَّ الْجَارِ ثُمَّ الدَّارِ. I would ask her, oh my mother, why won't you pray for yourself the way you pray for others? She would respond by saying, I've heard your grandfather say, neighbors before your own household. Al-jar thumma ad-dar. Pray for others, generalize your dua for others before you make dua for yourself. Yes, the 18 years of Janab Sayyida's tragic life, where of course she saw the beauty of her children, Hassanain, the beauty in the daughters, Kulthum and Janab Zainab. But she also lost an unborn child in the form of Hazrat Muhsin. The tragedy begins, in fact, before migration, when she lost her mother, the loving mother, Khadijatul Kubra, salamullahi alayha, at a very young age. She's a very young child, and that young child who loses a loving mother in a young age is just very traumatic for him. And that too, knowing that her mother passed away because of the difficulties she faced, because of the boycott of the Quraysh and the Kuffar, those people who later on became the leaders of the Muslim Ummah, their boycott, and when they spent 3 years in Shabi Abi Talib. And when Janab Sayyida would lose her mother, and she found out that Janab Khadija Salamullah Alaiha is no longer alive, Riwayah says that when Rasulullah had gone to bury Janab Khadija, he says, Inna Khadija lamma tuwaffiyat ja'alat Fatima taludhu bi Rasulillah. Janab Sayyida would be walking around Rasulullah, taduru hawlahu wa tas'aluhu ya Rasulullah. She would be walking around her father. She would be asking him, Aina ummi, where is my mother? What have you done to my mother? And of course, Rasulullah, who just also faced this trauma of losing both Janab Khadija salamullah alayha and Hazrat Abi Talib, he would be in pain himself, and he would not be able to respond to Janab Sayyida's request as to what he has done and how he has buried Hazrat Khadija. This is where Allah would send Jibreel to go ahead and help Rasulullah. Inna rabbaka ya'muruka an taqarra ala Fatima salam. Oh Rasul, send salam on to Fatima to Zahra and tell her that ummuki fi baytin min qusbin, that your mother is in this house in Jannat which is made of these jewels and these gems from Yaqut Ahmar, bayna Asiya, bayna Maryam bint Imran. She's between women such as Asiya, and she's between women such as Maryam salamullahi alayha. And upon hearing this, Janab Fatima, she would feel a little bit relaxed, and she would send her salutations on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. You know, we say and we read about the Masaib of Janab Sayyida, but still Zainab is known as Ummul Razaya, Ummul Masaib. Janab Sayyida is not known as Ummul Masaib. Why? Because Janab Sayyida did not see the pains of her mother the same way Janab Zainab saw the pains of her mother, Janab Sayyida. Janab Sayyida saw Hazrat Khadija go through this difficult time, and she was buried and all of her rituals were performed properly. But Janab Zainab remembers vividly what happened after the wafat of Rasulullah. When the house came under attack, her mother was pressed between the door and the wall, and as she was lying on the ground, when they had dragged Ali ibn Abi Talib, Janab Zainab had seen these scenes in front of her, that her mother would be crying, Ya Fizza, oh Fizza, come for my help. I cannot get up. Ala lanatullah al-qawm al-zalimin. Wa sayalamu alladhina zalamu ayyamun qalibin yanqalibun. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Oh Allah, please accept our ibadah tonight. Oh Allah, we've committed a lot of sins. Please forgive our sins. Oh Allah, give us the tawfiq to follow the commands and the teachings and the lifestyle of Masumin alayhim salatu wassalam, especially Janab Sayyida. Oh Allah, hasten the zuhur of our awaited Imam. Make us amongst the helpers and the soldiers of Imam. Wa akhir da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
ہر درود اور ہر سلام مادر حسین تیرے نام. ہر درود اور ہر سلام مادر حسین تیرے نام. اور زوجائے علی سر بلند فاطمہ عظیم ارجمن، جس حق کے قدسیان عرش ہیں غلام. ہر درود اور ہر سلام مادر حسین تیرے نام. ہر درود اور درود اور ہر سلام مادر حسین تیرے نام. ہر درود اور ہر سلام مادر حسین تیرے نام. اور کٹ رہا تھا فرق شاہدین، چل رہا تھا خنجر لئیم، بی بی آپ دیکھتی رہی، مٹ گئے حرم جلے خیام. ہر درود اور ہر سلام مادر حسین تیرے نام. ہر درود اور ہر سلام مادر حسین تیرے نام. ہر درود اور ہر سلام. اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد.
سنتم متوجہ زیارت. السلام علیکم یا رسول اللہ، السلام علیکم نبی اللہ، السلام علیکم یا حبیب اللہ، السلام علیکم یا خیرت اللہ، السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ. السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفات الله. السلام عليك يا وارث نوح النبي الله. السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله. السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله. السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين ولي الله. السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى. السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور. أشهد أن قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله أشهد أن كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك من مدلهمات ثيابها. وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين. وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي. وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وعلام الهدى والغروة الوثقى والهجة على أهل الدنيا. وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبيا بكم موقن بشرايا ديني وخواتيم عملي وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا ابن نبي الله. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد. السلام عليك أيها الشهيد. السلام عليك أيها المظلوم ابن المظلوم. لعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. السلام عليكم يا ولي الله وأحبه. السلام عليكم يا أصفي الله وفده. السلام عليكم يا أنصار الدين الله. السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي الولي الناصح. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي عبد الله بأبي أنتم وأمي طبتم وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم وفزتم فوزا عظيما. فيا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل عباس بن أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا ابن السيد الوسيين. السلام عليك يا ابن أفضل القوم إسلاما وأقدمهم إيمانا وأقوبهم بدين الله وأحوتهم على الإسلام. أشهد لقد نصحت لله ولرسوله ولأخيك فنعم الأخ المواسي. ولعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة استحلت منك المحارم وانتهكت حرمة الإسلام. فنعم الصابر المجاهد المحامي الناصر والأخ الدافع عن أخيه المجيب إلى طاعة ربه الراغب فيما زهد فيه غيره من الطواب الجزيل والثناء الجميل. وألحقكم الله بدرجة آبائك في جنات النعيم. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء. السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء. السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس وعنيس النفوس أيها المدفون بأرض توسلي ابن موسى رضا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك صاحب الأسر والزمان. السلام عليك إمام الإنس والجان. السلام عليك شريك القرآن. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أعوانك وانصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Please offer 2 rakat namaz for the ziyarat of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam. Inshallah, this concludes our program for tonight. Remember, tomorrow night and Saturday night at 7:30, Majlis-e-Ali will take place, commemorating the Shahadat of Ayyam-e-Fatimiyyah Zahra salamullahi alayha. Inshallah, we'll see you tomorrow night. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.